Today I'm going to talk about something that is not legal. And I talked about this 7 months ago, right when it happened. And this is sort of an update. So it's about the Israel Hamas war and what went wrong. Because clearly something went wrong. And that has resulted in the deaths of thousands of Palestinians. Welcome to Law and Society. Let's talk about this. This war was triggered by a terrorist attack by the terrorist group Hamas on Israel, where over 1,700 people were systematically executed, and the Israeli government failed in their intelligence and defense infrastructure, and Hamas got it right many more times than once on that day. It was a terrorist attack on Israel premised on the idea that Israel does not have a place to exist in that area, when nothing could be further from the truth. As we stand today, the state of Israel exists and it will continue to exist. The question is whether extremist groups will continue these attacks on the Israeli people and then be boosted by Iran's attack on Israel. Will the Middle East, will Arab nations take the responsibility of saying, no, Israel has a right to exist, and extremist Islamic groups that attack Israel are extremist groups and terrorist groups, and we as Middle East governments have a responsibility to eradicate these extremist groups. If needed, call out Iran for providing support to organizations like Hezbollah and Hamas that continue to terrorize Israel from both sides of the country. And that is a major issue. On the other side of the issue, the plight of Palestinian civilians cannot be neglected. The fact that Netanyahu's government has gone on this carpet bombing, massive invasion all the way up and down the Gaza Strip and essentially flattening it is akin to the response that George W. Bush made after 9/11. To a certain point, it was understandable, and then Americans themselves, the American government and the American public started to understand that it had gotten out of hand, that we had sprawled our defense all across the Middle East, all across Afghanistan, instead of honing the purpose of eradicating extremists, instead of using intelligence and gathering good intelligence and implementing targeted government operations to extremist groups. I am astounded by the global inefficiency of every single one of the governments, including the United States, of dealing with extremist violence. The recognition of the international community that organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah are militant, are extremist, are terror organizations, and whoever funds them is a sponsor of terror. And if that means that Iran should be made a pariah, then that be the case. Because we are clearly in the middle of a proxy war in this world. Not just with Israel and Hamas, but also in Ukraine and Russia. So we are in a we are in an era of war. And the question is, why can we not get ourselves out of this cycle of violence? Why can we not stop? Why can Netanyahu not stop after having killed thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of innocent civilians and many Hamas militants? But like I said before 7 months ago, extremist groups very efficiently use the civilian population as human shields. That's why execution of intelligence and precision of attack is very important. The intelligence and the operation of getting Osama bin Laden in the first term of Obama's administration involved a huge web, a lattice of information, intelligence, and last-minute operation and leadership decisions that got Osama bin Laden in 3 years versus the almost 8 years, the 7 years that the Bush administration went around carpet bombing parts of Iraq and overturning the regime there, and then going to Afghanistan and essentially building a state that Trump ended up essentially dissolving by forcing the Afghan democratically elected government to cede power to the Taliban. And we are again back to the point of not eradicated the extremism in the world, but only fractured it into other parts that have now gone on and started to terrorize other parts of the world even more so in a fractured manner. And organizations like Hamas come up, and organizations like ISIS come up, and there is no end to it. So where is the governmental intelligence? Where is the operative importance on the intelligence gathering and precision movements and operations that save civilian lives instead of destroy the lives of thousands and thousands of people and perpetuate, by the way, the trauma of the Israeli citizens that the entire Muslim world is against them? Because that is what the Arab nations, with their silence, will be doing, is doing to this day. They are not eradicating Hamas and Hezbollah. They are not helping the Israeli forces with eradication. Instead, Iran is funding these organizations openly and is now bombing Israel openly, threatening the very existence of a state that we have recognized now for well over 70 years. So Israel has a right to exist, and Netanyahu needs to know his limits of when to stop and when to allow humanitarian aid to come in. Killing the World Kitchen aid workers was the biggest gaffe that Netanyahu could have done. They targeted these aid workers. And since then, the US has been actively building a dock, a floating dock off the coast of Gaza to bring aid to Gaza. And President Biden is working every single day to make sure that bridge is built and the aid gets to Gazans, and that civilians in Gaza don't continue to suffer the way they are. Before the world says anything about America not doing enough, America still funding Israel, we have treaty obligations to Israel. But we have a humanitarian obligation to Gaza, which the innocent people of Gaza, the Palestinians of the Gaza Strip, and President Biden is building a whole new floating dock in the middle of the sea to reach Gazans for aid, to open up world aid, to come through the ocean and go into Gaza, to South Gaza. And so the world needs to think twice before saying that America is not doing enough. What America does need to do, however, is stop aid to Israel of any offensive weapons. Give them all the Iron Dome missiles they need. Every single Iron Dome missile. Give them all the intelligence they need. Help the intelligence of Israel with these extremists. And help Israel stand there and be assured that they have a place in the world and that is their country. So that's what global leadership means at this moment. And I see my president doing his duty. And thankfully, Mike Johnson did his duty by giving Ukraine the aid it needs, and Israel the aid it needs, and Taiwan the aid it needs. We are in an era of strife and war. And we have to be cognizant of this and always stand on the side of peace, of diplomacy, of human charity and service. And we must defend against extremism. Give Israel all the defensive weapons they need, but not help Israel with their offensive against innocent Palestinians. Give them all the intelligence they need for precision strikes on extremist locations, but don't go out carpet bombing South Gaza. With that said, I will stop because this is not my expertise. This is just me seeing what I have seen in the last 7 months. And the last time I talked about it, a well-known legal analyst, a well-known Jewish legal analyst, blocked me on social media because in that episode she didn't watch the content, but she read the description talking about a solution. We do need a solution, but that solution must include Israel being a state that exists where it exists today, with territory which is their territory today. But Palestinians have a right to exist as well. And the only tenable solution is a two-state solution. And with that said, I will stop. Check out the other video. I'll also add it to the description box. Take care.